Hello and welcome to another episode of ADH Tea, the podcast with me, Sarah, Weedy Mama.
And me, Donna, all the things at Unravel Tea. Join us today as we discuss masking, my English school thing that I wrote when I was 13 or 14. And
how my emotions are like a toddler.
Oh, Sarah.
How I express my emotions like a toddler.
So, Sarah, what is on your mind and what is in your cup today?
What's on my mind is the extortionate price of being an adult and how much everything costs compared to what it did a few years ago. And what's in my cup is some Siren's clarity.
Yeah.
And Donna, what's on your mind and what's in your cup today?
So, in my cup, I actually made this morning and then I realized that I have been seen to drink this a lot when we're recording. It is my cloud mist green tea again. I'm not sure why I gravitate towards that when we're recording.
Maybe it inspires more expansive thoughts, maybe, I don't know.
I don't know. Anyway, it is amazing and I really enjoy just even sitting down and watching the tea leaves unravel as well.
Yeah.
It's just really awesome. And then I get
Oh,
distracted by watching it.
I've just had a thought. Is that where the inspiration for your brand name came from? The meditative properties of tea. I love that. Why did that not occur to me until now? I love that so much.
Probably because I don't really talk about it.
I love that so much. And what's on your mind?
I have been going through some old school stuff, and it is incredible looking back, obviously hindsight, to see the amount of masking that I used to do, like even in written work. It was really, really fascinating to read some of the things, and I'm like, obviously, this is not how I felt, but this is what I wrote. Like the expectation or the feeling that you need to fit in and say the right things and come to the right conclusion rather than voice your own opinions.
Like, I suppose the weight of expectation, like,
yes,
you're expected to behave a certain way, and then
yes, exactly, yes. I'll just take what I'm actually thinking of what I read as an example. We were obviously set a task. It was higher English. Seems a bit of a weird thing for higher English, but hey. And it was like discussing the pros and cons of different things. And there was a number of different topics I had in this book that I'd written out. And one of them was vegetarianism or eating less meat. Okay. So just for context, I did used to eat meat. I no longer do. But this was obviously pre this decision. But I don't remember writing this, which is also quite interesting. But I wrote a huge list that you had to write a list of pros and cons. And the pros was like 2 items on the list. I can't even remember what they were. And the cons for eating meat was a whole page.
So the list was the pros of eating meat versus the cons of eating meat. So even though as a meat eater, your cons list was much longer than.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So for eating meat had 2 things on it. I can't even remember what they were. But there's actually arguments within the cons of eating meat to counter both of these points.
Oh. Well, to be fair, I suppose that's one of the things about persuasive arguments, isn't it? And debate, I guess. A good debate will have a counter argument for every argument, but that's really sad.
Yeah.
Oh.
And my conclusion was to eat less meat, but to not completely cut it out of your diet, even though I had a whole page for not eating meat.
Oh my God, that is so sad.
So it's obvious from that, that I didn't want to, and I saw all the reasons, I probably didn't even write down some of the reasons why people shouldn't, or not even people, like why I don't want to. And yet I wrote in the conclusion, no, we shouldn't completely cut it out, but cutting down is better. Because I felt that that's what I should say.
More socially acceptable, more palatable.
Yep.
But you didn't want to eat meat? Yeah. So do you think you ate meat as well? This is very interesting, actually, because, this is a subject very close to my own heart. Do you think you only ate meat so as to not get aggro at home at that point
Probably, yes.
in
Yep.
life.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
because for sure that's for me. And even now at Christmas, when I say that I don't want turkey and stuff, it's like, you what now? Like, what? It's Christmas. You must eat. Like, are you insane? And like, even now, as a 42-year-old woman, it's still not. I still dread that look of disappointment when I say no, thank you. You know, like
Oh,
it just
wow.
and actually, interestingly enough, I've gone totally on the meat train now, but when we were having our wedding and planning our wedding, and the wedding coordinator in the hotel, my sister-in-law is vegan, and we were organizing like the evening buffet, for like after like when everybody's drunk and hungry, and we were organizing, and the coordinator said, "But you can have chicken, though, can't you? She can have some chicken goujons," and we're like, "No, she can't even have butter on her sandwiches."
Wow.
Like it was, and I think I come from quite a big farming county, so the concept of being a vegetarian is just like, are you an alien? Like, what? It's getting better now. It definitely is getting better, but there's literally only one other vegetarian in my like neighborhood, and we know each other because we've bonded over our dislike of meat. But yeah, it's very funny. Just going back to that, what you were saying about like in school and stuff, and why do you think we feel the need to fit in more when we're younger, more so than now?
I think a lot of it's like emotional, emotional intelligence. I suppose the self-awareness as well. And also like now, because of the internet, and I have to say it's been great to find more like-minded people. So it doesn't matter. I mean, come on, you're in Northern Ireland and I'm sitting here in Inverness, Scotland.
Yeah,
This would never have happened
yeah,
when we were younger in the 80s, early 90s, because you didn't
mhm,
have that
mhm,
form of communication, or immediate communication, I should say.
mhm, mhm,
Um, so it's kind of helped more marginalized communities or people who have supposedly more marginalized opinions, I suppose, within,
mhm.
for example, like the farming communities and everything like that, you can actually reach people that kind of think very similar to yourself. So I
True.
think that the communication thing, the advent of the internet, has helped a lot with that.
Mhm,
But yeah, I mean, like in school, and I don't know, I suppose it would be interesting to get kids' opinions now, just to see what they feel like in school as well. Do I want to, am I okay to voice my opinions? And I remember you saying about one of your kids saying that they weren't comfortable with saying, their opinions in school, even though their teacher was very encouraging, because they didn't want to stick out. They didn't want to be seen as saying the wrong thing.
mhm, mhm,
Um, and I wonder if, like neurodivergent people, we are much more aware that what we say is wrong because we are told by external people, and maybe not so much parents, it could be anybody, even peers.
mhm.
Why are you thinking that? That's not how
Yeah,
everybody else thinks.
yeah, exactly.
Um,
And maybe as well, when we are younger, we don't necessarily know fully who we are yet.
mm,
So we're looking to external sources for inspiration, for validation. It's sometimes easier to, especially if you like someone. I
mm,
mean, I know I spoke about this before, how it was only when I really stopped caring
mm,
about other people and realized that all the people that I'd invested so much time and energy into, like all their hobbies, all that, like literally educating myself on someone else's hobby because I wanted to be friends with them, and I would
mm,
convince myself that I loved the same thing as them and
mm,
go full into learning all about it and spend like fully immersing myself in it. And then none of those people are in my life anymore.
mm,
And it's only the people who have stuck are the people who know the fullest, truest version of me. But back then I didn't like myself. So I was trying to merge myself into a version of somebody who I did like,
mm, mm,
as
mm.
almost like a mirror or a, I don't know what word you would use.
Chameleon.
Yeah, exactly. I was a social chameleon, 100%. But now I know who I am. Other people's opinions don't bother me so much because I'm like,
Mm,
well, if I annoy you, if my opinions or my how I show up in the world jars you, then move on and
mm,
go spend your time with someone who doesn't jar you. But I think as a child, you do try to melt into the background and kind of become a version of something that you believe to be more likable.
mm,
But I think that only comes with age and as you grow in confidence and grow into your own skin. and know who you are, because I didn't know who I was, and the bits that I did know I didn't like. So, and I think that's definitely a younger person's thing. Although I will say my kids now, their self-confidence and self-assurance and self-awareness blows my mind compared to what I was. And I don't even think it's just my kids. I just think kids in general are more aware of the world and more aware of themselves.
I was just going to say that I think that's also to do with like the whole internet as well, the kind of speed of information, the connectivity, the you can reach out and you can find somebody else who's going to feel the same way as you.
Exactly. And I do think there's a lot of, yes, there's a lot of horrendous things online for sure, but there are a lot of, like, even on kids' YouTube, there's a lot of very confident presenters and like a lot of very positive messages out there. And I think as long as we curate and monitor what our kids are being exposed to, then it can be a very positive experience. Because definitely my kids' confidence blows my mind. It's crazy, and they will even sometimes big me up and say, "It's okay, mom, you can do it." Like they'll give me the pep talk, and I'm like, "Wow!" Like when I was your age, I wouldn't have even been aware that anxiety was even. I wouldn't have even known to name it. Never mind say, "I know what I'm experiencing. This is how I counteract it. This is how and it's incredible. It makes me so proud that that's where kids are going now, because they're going to have, hopefully, they'll have different pressures and different stresses and different things to deal with, but at least that self-hatred that was constantly present in the soundtrack of my mind won't be there, hopefully, for a lot of them.
Yeah, because then at least they can reach out and find some kind of other people
Yeah.
who are
And
very
even just
similar.
having, even just being articulate enough to be able to verbalize and explain what it is they're experiencing, that's huge. Because I didn't have the words for a long time, even though I was very vocal and very talkative and articulate in some ways. I didn't have the words to express my dislike of myself in any way, shape, or form.
I find it really interesting because you're the total opposite of how I dealt with everything. We've spoken about this before. Like I just shut up and just didn't, not even so much engage. I just sort of kept my mouth shut. And you always went in and were like, "No, I'm gonna say this thing."
Yeah. Even now, well, I know I'm a very different person now, but even now, I'll do the thing. Like people say to me, "Are you nervous about something?" I'm like, no. But I do it, and then I eat myself up afterwards. So I jump in and do it. And then, like even my exams at school, I wasn't stressed or worried or nervous going into the exam. It was when I was waiting for the results that I would eat myself alive. When it's too late, what's the point in being nervous then? Because it's too late.
Yeah.
But I just, yeah, I do everything. Like there's a delay, a buffer in me almost with everything, because it doesn't
No,
stop me doing the thing, but it causes me to eat myself alive with worry afterwards.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense actually. I think another issue that I had regarding masking was actually even knowing who I was at the end of it, because I mean going back to that that report, I don't know what to call it, that I wrote, the meat versus non-meat eating type thing. Obviously I wasn't letting myself think what I actually thought, even though reading between the lines, you can totally see what was going on there.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's difficult when you're actually in that position to realize how you actually feel unless somebody actually goes, hey, look, this is the situation, you've written this, but actually it's obvious that your conclusion is not really your conclusion.
yeah. And isn't it sad that the teacher didn't like pull that out of you and encourage you to actually put your stamp on it? And like, it's really sad. And I wonder as well, was there a fear of like, I wonder what the fear was. Was it a fear of like failing the assignment if you were too thing, or was it a fear of like outing yourself in front of the rest of the class? Or I
Yeah.
wonder what was
I'm
behind it.
not I'm not too sure. As I said, I don't even remember writing it, so I can't answer that question. It was just such a interesting and eye-opening one to read through.
Yeah, yeah,
Among all my spelling tests, and it was like 2 out of 10, and I was flicking through it and going, it's okay, younger me, it's fine, we've got spell check. Because like I knew what all the words meant and I knew everything, but I to spell them, I don't
know. For me, that's numbers. I can write and do, but I'm number blind. Like I can't even now. I mean, I was helping my son, my 8-year-old son, with his math homework the other day, and I was helping him with his homework, and I literally had to get down to check it when he got back because I'm not like I think this is right, but I'm not 100% sure. And actually, 2 of them were wrong. And the worst part was my son had told me that we were doing it wrong. And I was like, oh, it's fine, just go with this and daddy will look at it when he comes home. Yeah, I have no confidence when it comes to numbers, which is probably why I don't look at my bank account, but that's another conversation. But yeah, it's I think everybody has a strength in either numbers or letters, dare I say. And mine is definitely words, whereas numbers are not my thing at all.
But that's okay. Everybody has their own strengths, as you say. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think it is. It's literally about becoming okay with the fact that you're never going to be brilliant at that thing, and just either finding someone who can support you, or like you say, use spell checker.
Yeah, exactly.
Embrace technology, and
I wish that I knew how to unmask because I still find myself going, wait a minute, actually, that's somebody else's opinion. What is my opinion on this? Even now, and sometimes I'll come to a realization and be like, wow. And with some things, I'm still like, so I'm not confident to stand up and go, okay, this is my opinion. But if it affects somebody else, I will. But I won't stand up and say if it affects me just by myself.
yeah, you'll stand up and you'll advocate for someone else. But not for
Much,
yourself.
much, much.
That breaks my heart. Actually, it really does, because yeah, I think you are a really good advocate. Whereas I just very often disengage brain and just speak from here. And like if something's bothering me or something like to fire me, I'll just splurge it out of me and it'll come out unedited, give it with both barrels. Whereas you are a very measured person and you would never say something unless you thought about it a million times first. Your opinions are way more valid in a lot of situations. Whereas I'm very knee jerk, kind of, and very emotional communicator. You are much more measured and considered and balanced. So if anybody should be confident speaking their truth, it's you, because yours is more tempered than
Maybe
mine.
you've hit on something there. Maybe if I've just realized this is my opinion on something, I need to have that time to process it and actually figure out everything and make sure that I have essentially my ducks in a row.
In
And
case
then I
you get
can maybe,
challenged,
yeah,
but at
yeah,
least
yeah.
you got it's fully thought through argument.
But again, if I see something, if I see something affecting somebody else negatively and I'm like, this is not okay, and I will stand up. Normally, like somebody treating somebody bad for no reason, and I will stand up and say, you can't do that. See you
Yeah.
later. Go away. Leave this person, please.
I mean, and that's brilliant. We need to get that fire in you for you as well. That's the thing. Because like I say, I literally I am so emotional. I'm not going to say it's a bad thing, because it's not, and I'm not going to be able to change it now at this point in my life. But I wish sometimes that I could just step back and give it time to settle before I start to speak. Because as soon as I feel a strong reaction to something or a strong emotion, it comes out my mouth. There's no buffer, there's no edit. It's just like, bleh. And then that's when havoc can happen. The other bad thing is it bubbles out, it comes out of my mouth, and then half an hour later, I've calmed down and I've forgotten about it. And then I come back in like Pollyanna, like everything's great, and everyone around me is like, "You just blew up in our faces. Like, how can you expect us to just go on like nothing's happened?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that." I'm so like in the moment, like just oh
That emotion has left you now. It's
yeah,
fine. You've
yeah,
vented that.
yeah.
We're good.
Like
We'll
how
just
a toddler will like lie down on the floor and have a kick and screaming fit, and then 10 seconds later they're laughing. That's me basically in communication form, in adult form. I don't lie on the floor, but
I like that though. It's nice that you feel able to do that. Do you know what I mean? Comfortable, that's the word I'm looking for.
I'm comfortable. I'm not so sure everybody else around me is. But although that being said, I can hold a grudge. Like no man's business. The way I can hold a grudge is unrivaled. I have grudges dating back decades. So
hey, mental note, don't get on the wrong side of Sarah.
yeah. I don't think you and I ever could. Well, I hope we couldn't anyway, because we do communicate very well. And we'll say things like, this is in my head. I'm not sure how it's going to come out my mouth, but I'm just going to say it.
It's more like soundboarding, I think.
Yeah, we almost document our thoughts for each other. And it's like, so it's not just like throwing random things in and running away from them. It's like, we know why we've arrived at the sentence that we've just said, kind of thing. So it's never a shock. And I think more people should communicate that way.
100%. And that is quite important.
And we don't expect to agree on everything either, which is always a bonus.
And it can be quite interesting when we don't, because we can have a civil and interesting discussion about.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's not like one of us is trying to convince the other. It's just like, this is how I see it, this is how you see it, and then one of us might shift one way or the other, but if we don't. So thank you for listening. Today we talked about masking, Donna's English work at school as a teenager, fear of expressing opinions, and how I have the emotional regulation of a toddler.
This is so just therapy sessions, isn't it? As Sarah was saying, thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of ADH Tea. If you could possibly send this on to any of your friends or people you think might find this useful and interesting, please do. And we are now on Apple Podcasts as well. Yay! Thank you, Sarah, for facilitating that. You can also find us across our social medias. So the podcast can be found on ADHT the podcast on Instagram and Threads. I can be found on all my Unravel Tea socials, and Sarah can mostly be found on Wheelie Mama TikTok. But we have all those links in the show notes. Thank you very much for listening, and you will hear us next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.